repetition. Well, having worked out this design, he again approaches the British government and they say thanks but no thanks. So that's the end of this difference engine as far as building is concerned. Well, now let's go ahead to the 20th century. And what was the year usually when it started? 86? 85. Around 1985, the London Science Museum has got a brand new curator of computing, a man named Doran Swade. And Doran does believe that Babbage could have built the engine and made it work. But there are a lot of technological historians who say no, no way. Because there was no mass production of identical parts in England. No standardization of anything. No two lathes had even the same lead screw. So if you cut a screw on one lathe and made a nut on another lathe, they wouldn't even fit. So that was the controversy. Doran was so determined to prove that Babbage could have made the machine that he started raising money. And he wound up raising enough money to build this much of the machine. He wrote a book. In England, it was published as The Cogwheel Brain. The American publishers figured us dumb Yanks wouldn't know what a cogwheel was, so it got the name the difference, actually. But the book is mostly a biography of Babbage, but at the end of the book, he describes the process of raising the money to build this thing. And the most charming little bit I ever read in that book was where he blackmailed 20,000 pounds out of IBM, 30,000 pounds out of IBM. So, they built the thing. They were able to demonstrate it to the press at the 200th anniversary of Babbage's birth. So that was 1991. Well, a little more of the story was demonstrated. This is more like legend. I don't know the details, so it's as I heard it. Bill Gates saw this machine, and they thought it would be nice to approach him for financing the building of this part. And he ultimately declined, but he referred them to a former chief technical officer of Microsoft named Nathan Myhrvold. You may have heard of him. And Nathan, after a big exchange of emails, made them an offer they couldn't refuse. He said, I will pay for 2 of these and 1 more of these because I want that machine in my living room. Well, they did. And it took them a little less time to build 1 more of these because they had the experience, but ultimately they got it finished. And the chairman of our board of trustees persuaded him to lend it to us for a year. What was that, 2008? So it arrived here in 2008 for a 1-year stay, and it kept getting extended. And at this point, we know we will have it to the end of this calendar year. Beyond that, no one knows. It does weigh 5 tons, so if he's going to put it in his living room, he's going to have to reinforce the floor. Now, I guess, could we split it in 2, or should we just then look at that? I think there's enough room to squeeze in. Okay, here's the drill. Julie is going to crank this machine a certain number of times, and what I want to do is sort of split you guys in the middle somewhere. So sort of will the guys to that side of me go around to the back, because there's stuff to see in the back and in the front. And after you crank it a few times, we'll change places.
It's not steam, do you?
No steam.
Yeah. okay if you'll just sort of shift around, go clockwise, so you don't bump into each other, and just great. While you're walking, let me say something. Cranking this machine, it turns out, it doesn't look like it, but it's a skilled operation. When I said that it takes a 40-pound push, that's not uniform. It suddenly comes on. And if you crank too fast or too slow, the machine jams, and you have to do something to clear the jam. So it takes a lot of experience to be able to crank this thing smoothly and not get into any trouble. Okay, if everybody would come back to the front, I'll tell you a bit about what's going on in the machine and what to look for. That's not a good point. We do what we did that other day. Okay. Here is what is going on in this machine. One turn of this main shaft produces one numerical result. The result shows up in this leftmost column, and it is communicated through some gears and shafts and racks and pinions down to the mechanism, which would print here, just for a proof, if we put ink on this roller. We don't do that because it would take 4 hours to clean the machine up. And if there were plaster of Paris or something else like paper mache in this tray, similar mechanisms to these print wheels would impress into this plaster of Paris a mold into which type metal could be poured. So it's all mechanized. Now, these columns, let's number them 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0 for the result, okay? Now, the cycle, which produces a result, we can divide that into 2 half cycles. In the first half cycle, all that happens is the number in column 7 is added to the number in column 6. The number in 5 is added to 4, and so on. That is, every odd-numbered column has its number added to the even-numbered column to its left. In the second half cycle, the evens are added to the odds. So 6 would be added to 5, and 4 would be added to 3, and so on. Now here is how it goes about adding. There's a gear between, say, these 2 columns. And people to that side of me can see it's a thick gear. But people on this side see that it's very thin. Let me light it up. See, right along here, a thin gear. My fingers are on it. But on this side, a thick gear. So as you walk around, you can confirm what I'm saying. Okay, now, a long rod inside this column, which has fingers at every level, is made to rotate and hits a projection on the inside of the wheel. And what it does is set every one of these individual wheels to 0. So if the wheel already says 0, nothing happens. If it says 9, it's moved 1 bit. If it says 1, it's moved a lot. And so those motions are communicated through these gears and added to the numbers that are in this column. So at that point, we've done an addition, except for carries, which I'll talk about later. We've done an addition, but we've lost the information in this column. So the next thing that happens is this whole column with this gear I call the sector, the gear in between, rises a bit. And because it's thin on this side, it disengages. But it's still engaged to this one, to the original one. So then these sectors are returned to their original position, which restores the number to this gear. And finally, I should say that the sector on this side goes all the way up, so it disengages from both this and this. So that adding this to this doesn't louse up this. Got it?
No.
Okay. Now the only thing I haven't mentioned is the fact that in this addition, when one of these wheels goes through 0 to 1 or beyond, you have to add 1 to the wheel above. That's what we call a carry. Now those of you who are old enough to remember non-digital odometers in your cars, and when you had 99,000, etc. miles and you added 1, all the wheels turned. Well, that's a simple mechanism which can't be used in anything this big. The torque would be too great. So what we need is a sort of a ripple carry. And roughly speaking, the way it works is this. When one of these wheels goes from 9 to 0, meaning a carry will be required, a thing called a carry lever, which is the most fragile and complicated part of this machine, a thing called a carry lever is moved a little way, which says a carry is going to be needed. Now, at the back, when you saw those whirling helices, when a carry is not needed, that whirling thing will miss the carry lever. When the carry lever is moved 1 notch over, it'll whack it. And when that thing whacks it, a part of the carry lever a little bit above adds 1 to the wheel above. And because they're in this spiral, a carry can just ripple. If you add 1 to a bunch of 9s, it will just ripple all the way up. I'm just describing it because the carry lever is kind of buried. You can't see very much of it. So here are the things to watch for now. Oh, one other thing. Because this thing is all made sloppy by 19th century standards, when one of those wheels moves, it may not move quite to the right position. So a thing that's the full length of the machine, I'll throw a flashlight on it. You see this here? Got a sharp edge here, and it goes the full length. And what it does is, after the addition takes place, that thing, which we call a lock, goes slam and digitizes those wheels. It just goes between the gear teeth. And if she were to crank much too slowly, one of them might not quite get where it should get, and the sword would hit a dead center, and that would jam the machine. So that's one of the ways you can jam this machine. So basically, he said it'll jam before it makes a mistake. So we'll have her crank it some more, and you'll look for the things I said to look for. See those sectors rising, and you can see that the even ones all go up at once, and when the even ones go up, maybe the odd ones fall. And you can also see